Okay, so the last sections of chapter 10. Thanks for hanging with me. I know it's a lot. So we have the last couple sections is cardiac and then smooth and then talking about development of muscle altogether. So cardiac, we mentioned already. What are its traits? You need to be able to rattle this stuff off, already because we already covered it in exam 1. So voluntary or involuntary? Involuntary. Cardiac is going to be uninucleate, so just one nuclei in there. It is going to be branched. You can see that branches here. There's another one, branch. It's branched, and then last but not least, it has striations. So involuntary, uninucleate, branched, striations. These are all traits of cardiac muscle. Cardiac is super cool. I think cardio is one of my favorite chapters to talk about in anatomy and physiology. And it's just super neat. It can create its own impulse without having to be told to beat. Then it can beat all by itself. For a while, the cells talk to each other. I mean, cardiac cells they're just cool. So they have these cool things called intercalated discs. You can see them not so well here. Well, there's one. Here's one. They're kind of hard to pick out. I like the slides that have the blue dye in there to contrast against the red stuff. But they have intercalated discs. They're definitely here in between the cells. And they're going to have gap junctions. And so when one of the cardiac cells gets stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system telling it to slow its roll and not beat so fast, slow down that heart rate, it's going to tell that signal, and that signal from that cell is going to tell the next cell to the next cell to the next cell, and they can talk to each other. So they've got these intercalated discs with gap junctions that allow them to talk to each other. So cardiac, super cool tissue. You'll talk about it in the beginning of AP2 semester. Smooth muscle, what are its characteristics? Involuntary. We don't tell the vasculature to vasodilate or vasoconstrict. We're not telling our digestive system to, move the food that I just ate for dinner down my digestive tract. No, does it all by itself. It's involuntary. It is going to have no striations. It is not striated. And we're going to go into that in a second. It has, typically, it's uninucleate, just like the cardiac. So just one nucleus, involuntary, no striations, kind of spindle shape. You see how they're kind of pointy at the end there? I feel like I'm leaving something else out. Smooth, no striations, spindle shape, involuntary, one nucleus. That may be covering it all. But why does it not have striations? Does it not have, myosin and actin? How does it contract? How does it work? So it does have actin myosin. So we've got these little guys, and we've got the thin filaments, the actin, and they are attached to dense bodies. So we have dense bodies that are in here. So that's these guys, dense body right here, here. But they're not attached to them like we had the actin attached to the Z line before, and it just, down the way, and it was very, systematic. It's not like that in the smooth muscle. It's kind of just, all over the dense bodies, and the actin's running through there. And then we've got our coordinating thick filaments scattered throughout the sarcoplasm. And then when they contract, they are going to contract, the myofibrils will come together, and tighten up and contract that muscle. And they're going to slide between the thick and thin filaments. But since they're not in sarcomeres, they're not in that linear arrangement, the way that they're arranged, they do tighten up and they will shorten up, but it causes the cell to kind of twist on itself, kind of corkscrew. Like if you're ever twisting out you wash your face and you got your wet rag and you're going to twist the water out of it. That's kind of how smooth muscle does. Kind of how cardiac muscle does too in your heart, the way it's arranged. It's kind of cool. But that's how these guys do. It is going to twist like a corkscrew, smooth muscle does when it contracts. It does have actin and myosin filaments in there. They are contracting, but they're not in a sarcomere kind of arrangement. Depending on what's controlling it, we've got a multi-unit, and then we've got our visceral, our guts. Sometimes we need, for example, in the visceral, we're going to need something called a pace setter cell. And so when you are moving your food through your GI tract when we go into AP2, you aren't controlling this, but your food is going to move. The muscles in your intestines are going to move the food through in these wave-like motions, this peristalsis, and everything is coordinated and whipping along there. And that's coordinated by these guys, the pace setter cells. That's who is going to set the pace and create these wave-like movements of the smooth muscle that you're going to contract, and then later on you're going to contract, and then you're going to contract, and pushes the food through the intestines. So that's smooth muscle. And the very last part of this very short video, thank goodness, is development. So we said that muscle comes from the mesoderm. On our 3 germ layers, mesoderm is going to make the muscle. So it's going to have these stem cells in the mesoderm. They're going to be myoblasts. These little bitty baby guys are the myoblasts. And some of these guys fuse together. So we said that skeletal muscle is the only one that is multi-nucleate. It's because of this. It's because when these guys fuse, we got fusions of the myoblasts, and now we're going to have all the different nuclei here and here and here and here. So skeletal muscle is multi-nucleate because of this factor. Some of these myoblasts are not going to turn into the skeletal muscle. They are going to become myosatellite cells. So when you are working out really hard, like we talked about, and you get those little micro tears in your muscle because you worked yourself really hard, the myosatellite cells come along and they fix your muscle for you. So it's really cool. They can help repair torn and damaged muscle. They cannot make new muscle though. So if for some reason you lost a chunk of muscle, if you were a victim of a shark bite, or I have a friend who rescues dogs, and she rescues pit bulls. She gave me, she didn't give me, I got my dog from her. My Rottweiler is a rescue from her group, and 2 of her pit bulls, I also have a rescue pit bull too, by the way. 2 of her pit bulls were fighting, and she got in between them to try and stop them and separate them, and one of them accidentally bit her arm, and it damaged the nerves going to her muscle, and she's got massive atrophy because of that wound, and that's never coming back. You can't grow fresh muscle if it's damaged like that, or if a shark came along and removed it from your body. You can't make new stuff, but you can fix the damaged ones if they are torn from working out too hard or something like that. So that is formation of skeletal muscle. Smooth muscle, I forgot to mention, we have the myoblasts that turn into myosatellite cells that can fix stuff for our skeletal muscle. For smooth muscle, they're called pericytes, and it's not spelled the same. It's P-E-R-I, cyte, C-Y-E-T. Those are going to be the helper cells for the smooth muscle, for the smooth muscle to help them repair themselves if something came along and damaged those. So that is the last of chapter 10. It is a big honking chapter. Let me know if you have questions. Send me emails. Drop in on the meeting on Monday and Wednesday. It's a lot. Take it in, watch the videos, absorb it, sleep on it, and then let me know if you got any questions.